Right, time to get this show on the road. Damn. Right, how do I do this again? Put this on. Forgotten how to do all of this. There you go. Right, so there you go. Posted it on my other page. Forgotten how to do all of this. It's only been a month and ya salam. Let me check what's my... Alright, that's cool. That's cool, that's cool. Right, so... Alright, people. Right, so... Inna alhamdulillahi wa kafah. والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فسلام الله عليكم ورحمته تعالى وبركاته أهلا وسهلا بكم. Alright, مرحبا وكل عام وأنتم بخير. Right, wa marhaban inshallah. Hope you've had an awesome Eid, people. Eid Sa'id, Mubarak, the whole works, everything. Tons of du'as, thoughts, blessings going out your way. I wish I look ripped. I've lost weight. I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing because I was already losing weight in the right way, but just Ramadan, but definitely tones you down, not eating. Right, so people, Hamza, alaykum assalam. We've got a lot of questions. People, it's like so long. Yes, salam. I tell you, I've almost forgot half the things. I used to have like a setup here. So Farid, Ustad Farid, wa alaykum assalam. I used to have a setup here in place for every week. I just come and just put it down and nothing was here. And I'm like, oh, damn. And where the hell? Where's the iPad? God damn it. So, cheers, people. Cheers. That's the way, huh? That's the way. Allah. Allah. So, ya salam, so much seems to have happened. God damn, it seems like it's been a lifetime since I've come on here and interacted. Ya salam, I hope things have been great. I mean, a lot has happened, an incredible amount in the country, in general. I don't know, ya salam, where do we begin? The elections, yeah, yes, and the legend, Corbyn, that, Allahu Akbar. I tell you, I mean, if you haven't watched his Glastonbury speech, you must watch that. It says it all, everything. Never, not in the UK anyway, has a politician been welcomed like that. That man is a living legend, I'm telling you. He is an embodiment of what true Islam or the fadl of Allah would be on a person. Amazing person, honestly. I feel proud to back and support and give my whole, my backing to him. So yeah, so anyway, so the elections that went, that's been incredibly amazing to just see, just to witness. We are people, folks, we are witnessing a revolution. That's what we are witnessing. This is happening right before us, I tell you. Nationalism. You should always, I suppose, be proud of where you are. Not arrogant, but proud. There's nothing wrong in... I know the hadith is weak, in case anybody's going to say, حُبُّ الْوَطَنِ مِنَ الْإِيمَانِ. I'm not going to say that, but I think in general, there's no harm in having in being proud of the country you're from. But I think more so now in the UK, because we are at like an unprecedented kind of, I don't know, milestone, I think, in the history of this country, especially with politics and things like that. There seems to all of a sudden be a fervor about it, like this. People are once again interested. They want to know. Hell yeah. And it's true. It's been said that Jeremy Corbyn is single-handedly, he is the most powerful politician in this country right now. There is no two ways about that. But okay, people, moving on. There's been a lot that's happened. I mean, even with me, we've had 2 and more now. I mean, a few terrorism incidents, unfortunately, in this country, and some in Europe, and that's been tragic as it is, and my challenging of that, and which kind of led to a strong backlash by certain people online, a whole hate campaign against me. Oh, they underestimate me. You see, it's like it's like that dialogue in the movie, in that old Bollywood movie, when the guy says, वैसे गेम काफी अच्छी खेली आपने, बस आदमी गलत चुना. That you guys underestimate me, my craziness. It's gonna take a lot more than that to get to me. So I think Osama Sayyid, alright, that's what I'm talking about. He's here for the alright. That's so these people, I mean, it ended up, there was a bit of it kind of came down to a few groups, or particular kind of groups like HT, Hizb ut-Tahrir and things like this. Now, my campaign, which is against anybody of any or no faith that is pushing or peddling an ideology of hatred. Like right now, we've seen AG Khan, Sange Alde, Jore. Right? So the thing is, we see right now the far right, Britain First, the EDL, people peddling hate, an ideology of hate. And I think that, that this, it's just too much now. This hatred, this poison has to stop. This toxicity, right, has to come to an end. Okay, we've seen too much of it, too much kind of, and the country in general, to be fair, is a very tolerant, peaceful kind of country. And I think it's so disappointing to see a few people peddle so much hate, and the likes of Hopkins, Katie Hopkins, Melanie Phillips, Tommy Robinson, Farage, these idiots, and the stuff that they get away with. And then on the other end, their counterparts, the kind of Islamic nutcases that you see, these idiots who were part of like neo-Khawarij groups like Hizb ut-Tahrir and other people who also equally peddle hate. And it's disgusting wherever we see this. And, it's just... And the irony is they all seem to claim that they're a voice for everybody. And they're all cut from the same cloth. That's the irony. And they all use the same justifications. It's like... So you get people like Tommy Robinson and Britain First, and they will say, oh, yeah, so what? Just because we speak against, we're not racist, we're not like this, but, it's these bloody Islam is full of hate, and this Quran should be banned, and this, and these people are the enemy, and we need a final solution, and then you get some nutcase driving a van through innocent people who've come out of a masjid. They've gone to pray, and rather than the country, or sorry, not the country, rather than the people recognizing that it's people like this who came to the aid of the Grenfell tragedy that we witnessed, that they were coming out of a masjid and they were coming home from the masjid, that they saved the lives of several people, that this is a peaceful kind of service in this country, that rather than recognize that some nutcase decides to, an extremist bigot decides to drive his van into innocent people, injuring and killing in the name of this same hatred. And then people like Tommy Robinson, Katie Hopkins, and these people, they will say, oh, so what if we preach this? Well, we're not telling people, oh, you're assuming there's a conveyor belt. You're assuming that everybody who's a part of EDL or Britain First will end up doing this. Oh, that's an assumption. That's a conveyor belt theory. Oh, really, you? Then people say, why do I use the word retard to describe these people? And then on the other hand, you're going to have nutcase Muslims doing the same thing, saying, oh, conveyor belt theory, just because a few people that were part of our extremist, hateful ideological group went on to stab random people on London Bridge, oh, conveyor belt, it just does your head in, the whole thing. Witnessing this, you just think, God damn. And this is why I've kind of taught that, like, look, and I've been saying this, that an ideology of hate, wherever you see it, faith or no faith, right? Muslim, non-Muslim, any religion, any sect, any cult, if they peddle hate, right, isolate them and avoid them like the plague. There is no room for people like that. Right, not in our society. In this society, there is no room for people like that. So I think that's, and obviously that led to some of the kind of hate against me that you saw. Some of you may have seen nonsensical articles. But I give it to them. Nutty. They made this sensationalize that article, and you think to yourself, well, even if I came across it, I'd be like, whoa, oh my, this Mufti seems like a bit nutty. So they made this whole thing, and I put out a response to it. But the response is never as sensational, is it? So I give them that, but I mean, god damn, and you see this. So I would say there needs to be a huge effort, collective effort amongst Muslims, and I absolutely admire people like Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, who is a legend of our times, who has taken so much slack to for coming out with these kind of views, in reminding people that, look, that these are fantasy ideals that are being kind of like guilt tripped onto Muslims. So just to you know, and obviously all these people, like I was watching some of these people say, oh, Hamza Yusuf, because I shared a few videos as well of Hamza Yusuf telling people that, look, this thing of saying we as Muslims need a caliphate, global caliphate state, is a fantasy ideal. It's not, it's a fantasy. It's never, Islam has never mandated these things. So that we need empires, that we don't need empires. Empires were a vehicle that was adopted at a time by Muslim communities, but it wasn't, but I mean, that's a whole topic to explain that, but this utopian ideal that is given to people as some kind of savior, it's just misleading and wasting a lot of fruitful energy, and so many lives have been lost in the build-up to this. So many lives. And it's shocking because, you see, truly I accept that people have a love for Islam. And that is highly admirable. People have a love for Islam. And they look around the world and they see that the Muslims are in a sad state of affairs. And that's undeniable, that Muslims, not all, but many Muslims are in a sad state, as are other people as well, not just Muslims, but yes, Muslims too, because they form part of the third world. But, I mean, and some of those issues are the colonial past, which obviously led up to certain things. But then the other issues are that Muslims haven't really helped themselves along the way either, like a lot of corruption, unnecessary, ridiculous amounts of corruption. You know, they hinder anything good. There's just feudal systems throughout the Muslim world, tribal or feudal or aristocratic, dictatorial. They don't acknowledge human rights, don't acknowledge women's rights, don't acknowledge... I mean, in this day and age, 2017, you're not going to acknowledge these kind of fundamental human rights in certain parts of this of the Muslim world, so to speak. So that doesn't help. You know, like if you're just going to be a dictator that sits on billions and billions, you know, like Gaddafi. You know, Gaddafi was sitting on what, like I think $80+ billion worth of money. I mean, what the hell is that about? You know, Hosni Mubarak, the same thing. Ridiculous money they sit on, and so they don't help themselves. So Muslims look around the world and they see all this nonsense going on. So they want to believe that things are going to be okay. So they're given this kind of romantic solution. They're told of a history which is not a true history. It's like a 10-second summary of 1400 years, and it's so romanticized that it puts Bollywood to shame. You know, it's that romanticized. I mean, I'm not trying to, my statement about Gaddafi wasn't a critique. My statement, I mean, what was a critique was the way money was being handled. That's what I was criticizing. So, and they'll say to people that, do you know why we're suffering? Because we don't have this Khilafah system under which Muslims would have global authority, and they will be an empire that rules and reigns supreme, and each and all will bow in humility to this kingdom, this empire, and every subject of that empire worldwide would be honored out of awe and fear for this empire. And people think, wow. And they say, and do you know, it's only been less than 100 years that this empire came to an end. So this now makes it confuses Muslims. And then they tell them all these things about Muslims are obligated. There's an obligation upon each and every individual Muslim. And then people feel guilty. They say, do you know people are dying in Burma? That's on you too. That's on you. You think, why is it on me, bro? It's on you. What are you doing to set up the global caliphate, the empire? And a person's like, well, I'm not doing anything. Exactly. So it's on you. So people are guilt tripped and into this kind of understanding. The truth is, look, we have to understand that Khilafah, first of all, Islam encourages unity. Okay, that's what it encourages. Unity of purpose, unity of prosperity, unity of humanity. Right, so it wants people to prosper through unity. But you have to understand that Islam, nowhere in the Quran does Allah say, and if people tell you this, they're only lying and manipulating things. Nowhere in the Quran does Allah say that you need one empire to rule the world. Nowhere does it say that. Right, to make that clear. Right, so secondly, they will turn to the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Now they will, on this case, misuse that. They will say, well, okay, here the Prophet is saying the word Khalifa or Imam, and that's what he's talking about. Now we have to understand that historically the world was, maybe 200 years ago, the world was run by empires. There were several empires. It was nothing unique to Muslims. Several empires. The Roman Empire from millennia, the Greek empires before that, you've got the Persian Empire. But even in recent times, you had the Russian Empire, you had the Ottoman Empire, you had the Safavid Empire, which were Muslims too. You had the Mughal Empire in India, which were Muslims too. You had empires. Now, in empires, subjects like you and I, let's say, did not feel necessarily a part of the empire. Like there was no nationalism to an empire. Okay, this is part and parcel of nation states. Okay, nationalism is a recent thing. Prior to that, people did have a love for, let's say, maybe the region they were from, but it was not linked to the politics of the ruling dictatorship. So, or the ruling kind of empire. So, let's say people who lived in Egypt may have loved Egypt, Misr, but that didn't mean that they felt like, oh wow, like we are part of the Ottomans, or the Ottoman, or the Abbasids, or the Mamluks are us. The common people didn't have this understanding. Is very recent. Okay, this is all part of a nation state kind of identity that has been developed only in the last century or two. Now, so prior to that, there were empires. Now, the part of the reason the empires, even the Ottoman Empire, felt that, we're collapsing, one of the things, they wanted to develop this identity and this nationalism. But anyway, I don't want to get lost into too many things, and in the future we will be dealing with these topics. But nowhere in Islam does it dictate that we need an empire. And anybody expecting in the 21st century for an empire to come about is look, the world has moved on from empires. You're not going to get an empire. It's not going to happen. Okay, yes, nation states, which we have today and we've had for the last century, are the phenomenon of the age. Maybe in the future these will transform to a different mode or a different vehicle of politics, of governance. So maybe we will have some kind of transnational states. Maybe those states will be dictated by social media. Maybe they'll be dictated by economics, by transnational kind of, some kind of realities. But Islam is not obsessed about how you rule. It just wants rule as opposed to anarchy. That's all Islam wanted. That where Muslims live together, have rule, do not have anarchy. That's all. So when people today use the terms like, okay, that's an interesting word. USA is not an empire. It's not an empire, but I understand what you're trying to say, that it has world global influences because it is pretty much running the world. Which I think empires, you have to understand that in empires, there was no such thing as this nationalism. It did not exist. And empires were only about the ruling people. They were not about the subjects. So, for example, if it was, let's say, the Ottomans who were the sultans, or the Mughals who were ruling, it was only about that family. They couldn't give, you were insignificant. You live, you die, anything, you do not count. It's only the ruling class that counts. Now, and it will go on through their family, and they will try to conquer. They are not fixed borders. There are not, and it's all about conquering through acquisition of land and stealing other people. And I understand some of these things that somebody's mixing that up with, because the US do and are involved in stealing maybe international resources or manipulating them. But it's not quite an empire, but I understand what you mean by that. Right, it has similarities, it bears some parallels on stealing resources, but it's not interested in land and things like this as empires were. So people today pushing this, that once we have an empire, all our problems will be solved. It's not going to happen, and people have done ridiculous things. And you see, I do ask some of these people that what is the difference between what they have to offer and what the Islamic State, ISIS, have? What is the difference? I genuinely ask, what is the difference? Because people will say, yeah, but ISIS, they kill people. Okay, so, right, let's just stop there for a moment, right? Because ISIS too claim to have a procedure to kill people. Obviously, we disagree with them, but they say we're only going by the Quran and Sunnah. So what is the difference? So, and people will say, oh, but they never, you see, these people, they came in by force. There's only technical differences. They came in by force. But look throughout 1400 years of history. Okay, remove the first 2-3 decades at most. The whole of Islamic history, we had tons of kings. Every era had just kings and kings and kings. They all came through by force. They came in, butchered everybody. In fact, the Ottomans had a long-standing history. Whenever one sultan would come in, the first thing he would do is execute his siblings and execute his uncles to eliminate any threat to the throne. So this was most dynasts and kings only came in through force. Most caliphs historically only came in by killing other people. So they never came in through a democratic, peaceful, loving process of, hey, we love you, come in. And that maybe as a one-off, one person may have. The hundreds and thousands that we witnessed, most of them only came in swimming through blood. They never came in just not even walking through blood. They came in swimming through blood. It's like I was reading the other day about this one caliph who came in into power, one of the Abbasids. And he went to Kufa, and what they would do is they would announce a curfew. So what he would say in their thing, they would say, right, okay, anybody I see out after 3 days, I will execute. This was a standard warning, by the way, that most previous rulers used to use. So this was a way of stamping their authority. So he comes to Kufa and he says, anybody I see after 3 days, we will kill them. So resort to your homes and do not come out until, except in the daylight hours. So now, after 3 days, he's riding along on his horse and he sees this guy. And he asks him, and the person has his sheep with him. And he asks him that, you, what the hell are you doing out here? And he says, why? What have I done? And this caliph says, well, I announced nobody better be out after this time. And he says, well, I'm new in town. I've just brought my sheep and I'm new. I didn't know about this announcement. I've got no idea. So this guy looks at him, the caliph looks at him and he says, you know what? Going by my intuition, I actually believe you. He says, I actually believe that you are telling the truth, that you genuinely did not know about about my warning that you have 3 days and then nobody better be out on the streets. And I believe that you're new in town and you're just trying to sell these sheep that you've got. Said, aha, but he said, you see, now if I let you go, people will say that, you know, I don't see my threats through. So I will lose street credit. Street cred. It's all about the street cred, people. Right? So he says, well, and you seem like a pious person. He says to the shepherd, you know, you seem like a pious person. And to be fair, better than this dunya for you is the akhirah. So you might as well just go to the akhirah. It's much better for you. And he kills him. Right, so anyway, so that's a story. Rahila Chowdhury is getting bored of my can you hurry up and answer the questions? Most of us know our current history. I'm sorry. Deduct it from my pay. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. I'm doing this for free. Right, so you see, that's another thing that ulama always need, and that is they need to be independent. You know that, so they can speak their mind whenever they need to. I could never speak even a tenth of what I do if I was employed by a mosque or some kind of a center. Could never do that. Right, so let's take these questions. Is ponytails haram for men? Right, ponytails are not haram for men, and in fact many of the Sahaba used to tie up their hair in ponytails, or they would braid their hair. So the thing is that over time we've come up with Muslim kind of cultures. We've come up with an understanding where we think this is how men ought to look, this is how women ought to look. But historically, it was nothing like this. And in fact, if we saw the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet today, you get likes. It's basically the same as amen to that, Fakhri. Amen to that. Right, so the thing is, now, it's true, if we saw the Sahaba today, the companions, we would not let them be imams in any mosque. Because they were way too, for us, you know, their appearance was way too off it for us. Okay, they had big beards, but beards, that's because even the non-Muslims then had big beards. So it was nothing different. The beard angle was nothing unique to Islam. It was like even non-Muslims, everybody in Arabia had generally a big beard. So that was not unique to them. Now, many of them, you know, the way they dressed, obviously they wore the same clothes that the Arabs of their time wore. Some of them, you know, they wouldn't, because it was a hot place, they wouldn't wear shirts. They would just be topless as men. So that would never go down well in any of our Islamic centers. Secondly, they used to braid their hair, and they would tie their hair, like so as a ponytail, as somebody asked. In fact, there's a hadith in Abu Dawood that one of the Salaf, whilst he's praying, he has a ponytail, and the other companion comes and opens his hair. The other tabi'i, opens his hair. And he says, after he finishes, that why did you do that? And he mentioned, and in response, he's, you know, the other person says, well, I read this hadith that when you pray Allah, that do not prevent your hair from also doing sujood. So there's a ruling about that. Right, okay. Okay, so just to answer that, some questions about Sheikh Hassan Kettani. Right, now, I'll get to that. Just to finish this. So in essence, tying ponytails and things like this are not un-Islamic, although today many people feel that they're un-Islamic because we've developed something which we think is an Islamic culture, but it's a kind of, I mean, it's weird because it's a synthetic Islamic culture. Like, we've synthesized certain Puritanism and put them together as this is what Islam ought to be like. And it's basically like the subcontinent culture, the Indo-Pak world fused with some of the Gulf, or not even the Gulf really, Saudi Islam. Just those two places in the world really. They play a big influence on how the rest of the world sees Islam for some reason. Right, so okay, just to answer that. Right, okay, I won't spend too much time on this because I've answered in much more detail in my article. I've been asked about Sheikh Hassan Kettani. Now, I have explained in detail in my article. If you go to my Facebook page, you will see in my notes an article, a refutation or debunking the baseless claims made by this organization called Five Pillars. Okay, claims to be the Muslim news and nothing but Daily Mail kind of tactics. Now, the thing with Sheikh Hassan al-Kettani is that people are upset. Some people are upset. I don't think many people, some people, you know, you're going on like so many people are upset. I seriously doubt that. Alright, but okay, most people do not even know who he is in the English-speaking world. Now, but the thing about him is he made an... I have known Sheikh Hassan, or Hassan al-Kettani, I've known him for a few years now. I think it's been about 3 years or so. But you see, you have to understand, when I say I know him, as in I know of him. Now, I did not know certain things about him, certain views. Now, I have highlighted in my article that he recently, when I attacked the Hizb ut-Tahrir for having neo-Khawarij views, which they do have, they are definitely part of the neo-Khawarij kind of movement who Muslims should avoid like the plague. And anybody that is calling to military coups or rebellions in the Muslim countries, we need to avoid these people. Now, what had happened was, when I started to condemn them, he made a post against me, which was really weird because he has access to me. Okay, he has direct access to me, Hassan Kettani. He can just pick up the phone, he can WhatsApp me. He has me on WhatsApp. He had me and still has me on WhatsApp. Right, now, I read this post. Now, these groups, these haters and hate preachers and whatever, got really happy. And I'll tell you where the history to this lies. You have to understand the history. These people play a lot of when I started debating them, they play this game of usulul fiqh. We want to talk usulul fiqh. We want to talk usulul fiqh. So with some of them, I kept responding by saying, look, you guys, what usul? Which madhab? You don't even follow a madhab. I'm Maliki. How would you want to talk to me about Maliki usul? So when they got Hassan Kettani, who is Salafi stroke Maliki, when they got him to make a comment against me, this served a big purpose for them, because they were saying, oh look, here is a Maliki scholar. First of all, Hassan Kettani is not rated amongst the Maliki world, right? He's a known person. He's known because of his family. It's not him. His family is huge. They've had great muhaddith and things, and they do not see necessarily eye to eye with him. His own brother disagrees substantially with him, right? So Hamza Kettani. So the thing is, now they got this statement from this person who I think was very irresponsible of him to go on social media. He does not even interact generally with the English-speaking world. To go on social media and make a statement against me, saying that, oh, I'm lost and, you know, I'm saying Maliki things which are wrong. Now, I, shukran, alaikum assalam, right, okay, I actually, before making any public statement, contacted him privately. You see, now this, they won't tell you. He won't share this kind of stuff. I did not go publicly first. And he will not deny this because I have the conversation. I went privately, I WhatsApped him, and I spoke to him, and I said to him that, Sheikh, what is going on? And I told him that, why are you defending this group called Hizb ut-Tahrir? They are Khawarij, neo-Khawarij. They call to a rebellion. And his responses started to shock me. And he actually, he was endorsing. I said to him, do you know that they actually state that the king of Morocco is upon kufr, and the government in Morocco is an illegitimate government, as it is in all countries? And his point and his response was, and what? So I was shocked with this kind of response. And then he went on to endorse how it is a necessary part of our iman to hate kuffar, especially the Jews. This is what he went on to endorse. And I said in my words, and you can ask him, I said, Inna Allah lam yu'allimni an akra an-nas. Allah did not teach me to hate people. And his response was like, Subhanallah, and how, how can you say this is one of the fundamental things of staying a Muslim? If a person doesn't say this, they don't have iman. Now, I was shocked at his response to all of this, and he's saying that we have to hate kuffar and we have to do this, and not being bothered about calling to a rebellion. This is now. So I left this conversation there, and then I spoke to some people about him. At that point, I was told, oh, well, it's no surprise that because he was involved and convicted of the 2003 Casablanca bombings. And he's been known for this attitude. So I was like, whoa, okay, because I knew he was in trouble with the authorities before, but he never told me what it was about. Now, I researched it and I found out this is actually what it was. So I shared it. And I said, well, him trying to tell me I can't call them extremists is ridiculous, because he himself is a convicted terrorist. So they said, yeah, well, he was pardoned after 7 years. He received a 20-year sentence and served over a third, and then received a pardon, not an exoneration. He was not exonerated, he was pardoned for the rest of the sentence. That means forgiven. It does not mean you did not do the act. If you can speak Arabic, you can actually Google and search the articles. They will tell you he was arrested for several months in Casablanca and other cities. Several months before the bombing, he was publicly calling to an uprising to topple the state. He was preaching publicly, asking people to topple the state. Then 3 months later, a bombing goes off in Casablanca. This is why he was arrested. For his, they never said that he was involved in actually putting wires together and stuff. They said he was part of this movement that led to the bombing, because and the articles are very clear. They speak about his public preaching for months, that he was preaching publicly. He was rallying the people to rebel, that this system is kufr, that you need to do this. So I'm sorry if it upsets you, but Islam does not teach us to rebel. Islam does not teach us to cause bloodshed. Right, no, he did not. Somebody saying, no, he did not. I specifically mentioned to him now about Morocco. Now I mentioned about Morocco. This is last month. And he said, and what? Like, what's the problem with them saying the Moroccan king and the government is upon kufr? This was his thing. He said, and what? I don't think that they're Khawarij by saying that. So, I'm sorry. And then he said, we must hate kuffar and we must hate the Jews. These were what he was endorsing on that private thing. Now, it's only after that, like I said, and he still till today in Morocco remains on the terror watch list. He is banned from any public teaching, any public preaching. He is not allowed to hold any formal capacity. He is not allowed to teach Islam or preach Islam. So I'm sorry if it upsets you. I'm sorry if you misread some report on Amnesty. But what do you want me to do? Right? If we're going to condemn extremism, let's condemn it all. Let's not say, oh, he's my Muslim extremist, so he's okay. This is that same scenario. Oh, my child can never do anything wrong, but it must be their child. Right, well, your child can do something wrong too, God damn it. Wake up and smell the coffee. You know, the innocent, like somebody said, oh, well, you know, the Casablanca bombings. Well, this. Well, you wouldn't have that goddamn attitude if your child, if your son or daughter had their arms ripped off with that bomb. You wouldn't have that attitude then. Would you be saying, hey, but Muslims, you know, Muslim, goddamn, you know, the Muslims who are going to rip children's arms and legs off, we don't have no space or toleration for these kind of Muslims. They are a cancer in our society, right? So my point is, look, I'm not saying, I'm making it clear, I was not condemning him to start off with, okay? He himself came and made a statement against me for condemning them and said to me, why are you condemning them? I contacted him privately and said this to him. His response was, and what? Yes, King of Morocco, this was now, government of Morocco is upon kufr, and what? So we must hate the kuffar. Now, then I found out about his past. So look, I'm sorry, you know, 2-3 years ago, people said 3 years ago you met him. I met him once, yes, but I didn't know. He showed me his academic studies. Do you know, in my private conversation with him, I said to him that, do you know Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya has been saying, he said to me, who says what you are saying? I said, Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya. His actual words were, Sheikh Kettani said to me, first of all, he said, I don't believe Sheikh bin Bayya says that you don't need an Islamic caliphate and we don't need to, and these nation states are not kufr. I said, of course he says it. It's on his website. Then his response was, so what if Sheikh bin Bayya says it? He says, so what if Sheikh, these were his words to me privately. He said, so what if Sheikh bin Bayya says it? The Quran teaches us and the sunnah. I said to him, no it doesn't. That's your interpretation. Wallahi, I've got Hassan Kettani's book here that he wrote a few years back. Yeah, it's called, it's when he was in prison. Now, like I said, I knew in the past, I did not know too much about him. I knew he had been imprisoned. I never looked into it. When I met him, we probably spoke for an hour at most, and we just spoke about what are you up to, what do you read, what do I read. You know, if you met a Nazi today, and you happen to be somebody of a different strand, he's not going to tell you, hey, I'm a Nazi. He's just going to be nice with you. So, like, I'm just giving an example. I'm not saying he's a Nazi, but I'm just giving an example. So when he had a past, right, so when he had a past of being a convicted terrorist, he's not going to tell me, hey, I had a past. But I've got his book, Al-Ukasha, which he writes from prison, when he's asked who are the leading Malikis in the world today, the leading Malikis in the world. And who does he say? Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya. And he says, was Sheikh Hamza Yusuf fil Gharb. These are his words. He says, Sheikh Hamza Yusuf fil Gharb was Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya. And I quoted to him now Abdullah bin Bayya. And he said, well, I don't care about Abdullah bin Bayya. You see, so I'm sorry. Look, these are leading ulama in the world today. The Don scholars of Morocco, Sheikh Rugi, Sheikh Ahmed Raisuni, Sheikh Mustafa bin Hamza, the leading senior scholars have all condemned this view. So I'm sorry if it upset some people that my thing was not personal with him. He decided to get involved. Only then, it was a good thing he did, because I then discovered that, oh, wow, this is this guy's background. So anyway, right, so let's clarify that, okay? Right? So look, and I've got nothing personal against him. I'll be very clear. His brother, who is very involved in one of the major Sufi groups in Morocco, and is very well known in the ministries of Morocco, and is more of a scholar on hadith than him, right? Sheikh Hamza Kettani is on Facebook. I have still good relations with him. I'm still personally on WhatsApp with his brother, right? I engage in a group with his brother still. I have nothing against Sheikh Hassan, but the thing was, I will be clear, anybody who holds views about hatred, I will condemn them. If they are Tommy Robinson, I will condemn them. If they are Melanie Phillips, if it's you can Nigel Farage, whoever it is, even if it's a Muslim, if you're pushing hate, it's not you're not going to get my support. Okay, so it's as clear as that. So obviously, if you push hate, you don't probably want to know me. Block me. Block me because I'm going to end up blocking you. It's as simple as that. I do not want to know you if you push hate. Let's move on to some of these questions, people. People are waiting. People are waiting. But I think that was needed. Yusuf Ahmed, shukran, telling me to smile. I normally am smiling. I normally am laughing quite a lot. But that needed explanation. It needed, and to explain that, look, this was not done from any kind of personal hatred, because I have zero personal hatred to him, because I have no interactions with him in that sense. Okay, so let's move on to some of these questions. Right, so, right, does the wife have any financial obligations to provide for food or rent? All right. Well, she wanted rights, didn't she? Right, well, if you... Yusuf al-Khattab, I don't push hate. Yusuf, I can't believe you'll push hate. Right, I'm sure you are from the promoters of the caravan of love. Right, so... Right, does the wife have any financial obligations? Right, okay, Islamically, we have to understand that, look, in the textbook perspective, a lot of the textbooks are going to say no, that the husband should provide. But I would respond that, look, these answers need to fit our contemporary framework. So in this day and age, you'd look at our framework. Obviously, if she is living with somebody who does not have money or is struggling, and she does have money, then I would believe, yes, it is her duty to provide. Because it's anybody's duty. It's a human duty. And the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ said that inna fil amwali la sadaqatan siwa zakat. Or la haqqan, sorry. Inna fil amwali la haqqan siwa zakat. That there is an obligation an obligatory charity in your wealth other than zakat. What was the Prophet speaking about? What he was speaking about is incidental situations, contingent obligations. So it may not be an obligation from a broad perspective, but let's say today, I don't know, something happened to somebody in front of you. They needed some money. You had it. You have a duty to help them, a duty of care, a humanitarian duty, an Islamic duty to help, to fill in that gap with whatever little you can do. So in that sense, obviously, if she's in a relationship and her husband is like, oh, I haven't got food, oh, I haven't got rent, he's about to get chucked out, and she's like, don't worry about it. She's like sipping on a cocktail, right? So then in that case, so I would say, look, these things just require sensibility, that's all. Right, okay, one question. Somebody's asked, Idris Rana Saab, all the way from Jamia Binoria, Karachi. Idris Rana Saab, kaise hain aap? Khairiyat se hain? Right, so only one question to you. Tell me, kya deen-e-Islam mein ladki ki zabardasti shadi ki ijazat deta hai? Okay, so aur jab shadi zabardasti kar di jaye, to kya zabardast, written in English, you see, so I'm trying, kya zabardasti adjustment karwane ki ijazat hai hamare deen-e-Islam mein? Okay, this is an interesting question. It's about Ustad Daniel, ahlan wa sahlan bik. People, Ustad right there, come on, that's Eid Mubarak, Sheikh, Eid Mubarak, right, wa tasharrafna bi hudurik. Right, so this is an interesting question. There is no force in Islam. Okay, there's no force in the deen, and there's definitely no force to do certain things. And there's no force in getting people to marry you. That is ridiculous. Or to marry somebody else, sorry, not just you. Not just like, this is my empire. You will marry me today, and then you... The thing is, you see, you can't force people in Islam for marriage. That is ridiculous. Okay, now there is a difference here, but there is a distinction between force and pressure. Both are wrong, But pressure, unfortunately, can fall into a grey zone of what is pressure. Because pressure could be peer pressure, which isn't haram like that, like it's not, or neither is it illegal, but it's wrong. You shouldn't do it. It could just fall into kind of like familial pressure, and it could be like shocking, mortifying pressure where the parents are like, if you do not say yes to this marriage, तो क़यामत के दिन भी मैं तुम्हें नहीं बख्शूंगी. That's the mother's dialogue. Sorry, I should have put like a dupatta on my head when I said that. And the camera flashes like, and I do one of those. 9 mahine, for 9 months I kept you inside for 9 months. क़यामत के दिन मैं तुम्हें बख्शूंगी नहीं. I will not forgive you. The milk you drank, I will take hisab for every drop. You're like, okay. I mean, I was a baby. I mean, it was hardly a contract, for God's sake. I mean, would it help if I buy you some milk back? I mean, can I do the shopping, and can we call it quits, or how does this work? So this is wrong, people. Look, this kind of Ustad Muhammad William, ahlan wa sahlan, ahlan wa sahlan. Right, the thing is, this kind of forcing people, pressuring people to get married, because I think the forcing may happen, and that is categorically haram. But I think that's a minority where it's actual force, like not that I'm mocking this, that's my humor. But then there's pressure, and I think pressure happens a lot in our community. And the thing is, look, these relationships will not work out. Okay, if you pressurize your child into getting married, and I say child, I know they won't be children at the time, they'll be adults, but they need to act like adults and say no. But I know sometimes it's difficult because, what are they supposed to do? And because this is what happens, this is what happens in some of these scenarios. The parents will say, and I deal with so many divorce cases and people going through divorces and stuff like this, they contact me, and so I see this almost every day that I'm prepared to take this, it's there. So people will say, this is the scenario. They will say, you will get married to so-and-so. And, right, and well, if the daughter, and it's worse for daughters, unfortunately, if she says no, they will say, why? Have you got a boyfriend? Have you got boyfriends? Have you got a gang of boyfriends? So the dilemma, the catch-22 is like, the only possible logical alternative to them is that you're not marrying your inbred cousin who looks just like you, which is like, like the Hills Have Eyes. Like, you're not marrying him. The only reason that I can make sense of this is because you must have so many boyfriends. So many boyfriends. In fact, you must you must just be tantamount to a prostitute. So she's gonna be like, what the hell? No. So the parents' response is gonna be like, well, Ustad, Rash, people, Rash, that's the man. If you want to get into a decent physique, join his program right there. That's the man. Right there. Look at this, man. We've lost all of, and I've been seeing the photos from from your gym, Rash. It's just been depressing me. Coming back to this, so the parents are like, well, look, to prove to me that you've not got all these boyfriends, marry your cousin. That is wrong. Wrong on every level. Right? Look, you cannot do this, people. You cannot do this. This is categorically haram to pressure somebody into marrying somebody they don't want to marry. Okay, so just to kind of clarify that. And I'll be honest with you, these marriages don't last. Don't last. And they tear everybody involved. I tell you, like, on Eid, the night before Eid, so Chandrat, yeah, so the last day, so it's Eid the next day, I got a call. It must have been 9:30 or about 9:15 p.m. Somebody saying, can you, like, and they're having this dispute argument right there, couple on the phone. And they're saying, can I come or can some scholar come and witness them? They need to do the talaq now. Like, can somebody come? They need to do this. I said, well, look, relax, people, for God's sake. Like, I mean, it's Eid. I mean, give people, like, maybe. I said, look, go through a calm process. Think about it. Put things, like, give it at least a 2-week process or something. But anyway, and then they were just upset and whatever. And I told them, look, they just need to sort out, they've got some problems. They need to sort out their problem. But the thing is, look, some people are living this, and it's sad. It's sad to see that. Okay, so what does not help is this kind of parental attitude. And we need to... So anyway, so just to answer that, look, if it was force, I believe the nikah would be... it would be haram and the nikah would be invalid. But force is actual force, like... like grab by the hair and or actual violence. If it was pressure to which the person has succumbed. Now pressure is like a spectrum. So pressure could be, you see, it's difficult to qualify pressure, because pressure could be, look, come on, no, and it could be like, oh, your family, it could be your friends, it could be society, it could be... Pressure is difficult to qualify. But the person applying pressure, it is haram, but the nikah would be valid. And they can still obtain a divorce if they clarify their reasons. They will be entitled to that. I hope that's answered this question. Okay. Let's take a look. What is taqiyyah? Francisco, ¿qué hubo? ¿Qué tal, mano? What is taqiyyah? Taqiyyah is an Islamic understanding, or when I say Islamic, okay, just quickly touching up, what is that a forced marriage is haram? Well, there's a hadith in Bukhari that a woman came to the Prophet and said that my parents forced me, and the Prophet told her off and said that the marriage did not count. So it is, and then it comes under general rulings of la darar wa la dirar. You're not allowed to harm people in Islam. People have free will. They have self-determination rights. And marriage is something, the reason they give consent is not, the reason it's called consent is because they're consenting. It's not called repetition, that, hey, repeat after me, like I do. It's consent. So they need to have consent, right? So that's a common sense question. To ask, where does it say you need consent in Islam, is an absurd statement, right? So coming back to this question, right, taqiyyah is the concept that we are allowed to conceal our Islamic beliefs to trick people for some greater good. Now this, and it's to do with beliefs. It's not to do with general, like, so for example, it's not to do with fear. Like, imagine somebody said, I'm going to kill all Muslims. Oh, I'll kill all Muslims. So they got you and said, oh, are you a Muslim? And you said, no, I'm not a Muslim. That's not taqiyyah, because that is just common sense, because you're about to get killed. So that's clear that you can lie. Taqiyyah is where you go about daily and just without threats, or imminent threats, but you have a persona which is fake, and you pretend to be something else, and you pretend to believe different things. So this generally is popular within the Shia community. I'm sure maybe not all the Shia, but some Shia, it's popularly a Shia kind of doctrine or a kind of belief that it's okay for them to do taqiyyah, to lie about a lot of their beliefs so they become more accepted. That's what's popular about, wallahu a'lam. Right, so, right. Can we pray Fajr when the astronomical twilight begins, or do we have to wait until the nautical twilight? Okay, the nautical twilight does not apply. It's to do with the sea. It's not to do with land. The thing is, we are right now in the UK, because this is Ben, who is the Maliki Viking. He's holding both kind of, he's holding the fort for both, for the Malikis and the Vikings in South England, right? So the thing is now, Ben, because in the UK we're going through a twilight period, which means that after sunset, the whiteness in the horizon does not disappear. So it remains there, okay, because normally what happens is the sun sets, there's this orange, red kind ofness, and then that disappears, and then it's white, and then that disappears, and it's pitch black. Then when a whiteness reappears, that's dawn. Okay, that's how it normally happens. During the summertime in the UK, that whiteness never disappears. The whiteness, according to Imam Abu Hanifa, for that to disappear is when Isha kicks in. And according to some Malikiyah, like Abu Bakr ibn al-Jaham and some other Iraqi Malikis, it was the same. The whiteness had to disappear. Now, based on this, Isha doesn't come in, and neither do we know when Fajr comes in. Okay, so for Isha, it's simple. You can go according to the other mainstream view that look for the redness to disappear is Isha time. And that's fine. But when does Fajr come in? This is why we had the crazy Ramadan timetables, the Ramadan kind of timetables we have, is because people don't know when to calculate Fajr. So some people say we split the night in half and we take half and half, and some people say split into a third, and some people say we go an hour before sunrise, and all that kind of stuff. So right now, I would say, Eve, it does not matter whichever opinion you take, because we do not have a set time for Fajr. Okay? So that's my understanding, and I could be wrong and people will disagree with me on that. I believe if you prayed Fajr, you know, really, because I'm not sure what you're trying to do. If you're trying to pray as late as possible, then that's easy. If you're trying to pray as early as possible, then like even if you prayed at 1 or whatever, to me it doesn't make a difference, because Fajr time does not really kick in, doesn't have a set time during these months. So you can, everybody's estimating the time. So it's fine. As some ulama have said, you can even combine it with Isha. Some people have said you can pray Maghrib, Isha and Fajr together during these times. And some ulama have said that. They may be a minority, but I feel you can follow that. That's fine. If you don't get a greater reward, next question, Junior is asking, for choosing to struggle more, is the one doing only the fard then equal to the one who chooses to do a lot of sunnah as well in terms of reward? What? If you don't? One doing only the fard then equal to the one who chooses to do a lot of sunnah? I'm not sure I understand this question. I'm sorry. Right there, has he got a clarification here? Or can't we say that doing a lot of sunnah is categorized as something where therefore you choose to struggle more? That it is something enjoyable. Right, okay, I'm not sure. I'll try answering this question how I understand it. I don't understand the question elaborately. Look, anybody who's praying more gets more reward. It's as simple as that. The struggle, to suffer is not intended in Islam. If you choose to suffer, you're just an idiot. Or you're misguided. Like I've said before, if you choose to suffer, you need to choose to see a psychiatrist. Right, so the thing is, look, so if your question is, well, to pray is to suffer, not really. I mean actual kind of suffering for the purpose of suffering. I don't mean, you see, like low level income. Like if you mean, well, I could be lying in a bathtub, chilling, or I could be praying nafal. So obviously one is less relaxing. But less relaxing does not equate to suffering that is purposeless. So the concept of suffering in Islam is like saying, like, imagine, I'll give you an example. Like, imagine you said, okay, I'm going to walk to the masjid barefooted. Why? So it hurts me, so I can suffer. Because I want to do this for the sake of Allah. That is ridiculous. Even, Allah doesn't need your suffering. Okay, so I don't mean suffering, but like struggling in the path of Allah. You see, but if you happen to struggle, so let's say we fasted now. In the fast, there is a struggle, there is a suffering. But that is nothing extra to the act. We are being rewarded. So let's say, for example, you were in the masjid and somebody stole your shoes. So you had to walk home barefooted. Now, because you did that, you would get extra reward. But you didn't seek it out. It just came like that to you. So the fasts have come to us in a set way. We embrace them. They may come to us in winter when it's dead easy. They may come to us in the summer when it's hard. But we didn't choose to suffer on purpose. Okay. Right, so are there particular fasts days we should not be fasting throughout the year? Generally, you should not fast on the days of Eid. That's all the only, and the days of Hajj, as in the actual following on the Eid days, which are like 3 days of Tashriq. But other than that, it's fine. You can fast whenever you like. Astronomical twilight. Okay, I've answered that. Why was Islam interested in territorial expansion? Right. I'm not sure if Islam was interested in getting the message through to people. The problem is, historically, we didn't have things like today, like social media. You jump on here. You're Nav, jumping on. Is that you from the Nav and Waz show? Right, so the thing is, people today, you can jump on social media and somebody on the other side of the world can hear your message. Historically, it was difficult for these empires to allow other people to bring in anything to do with their message. So now this led to insecurities, it led to preemptive attacks that other empires would do to crush people, because they felt, why are these people preaching this, crush them. And it would leave, well, Wazio, look at that, we've got some celebrities logging on today. People, that's Wazio right there, involved. There are very few people, I have to say, who are, well, to my understanding, so sincerely committed to the humanitarian work and charity. Wazio is one of them that I would totally trust with my money. Okay, so people, if you are ever hesitant about trusting, I don't know, in giving charity or something, you got my backing. That's your guy right there. Reach out to him, support his cause, inshallah. He does a lot of hard work. Right, so coming back to this question, so it's not that Islam was trying to, it wasn't empire thirsty, but in the past you had no choice but to clash, and people were getting oppressed. And this is why, you see, people forget this. People forget this. What was the first ayah that Allah communicated about raising arms, about going to war? What was Udhina lilladhina dhulimu, that those who have been oppressed, they've been persecuted, now Allah has granted them permission to take up their weapons. Now, after this suffering, after this persecution, it was not bloodthirsty. Islam was not about empire. It was never about empire. Right? So we have to always go back to the Quran and understand the first time Allah said you can go out, you can fight them then. The first time came after so long years of persecution. Now udhina lilladhina. Now that they've been oppressed, dhulimu. Now they can raise their hands in defense. So remember that, people. Okay, and that's in Surah Al-Hajj. Shukran, Sahil. Right, okay, so Samir has a question. When Imam Ghazali talks about the greatness of knowledge in his Ihya Ulumuddin, could you shed some light on this? Yeah, I think it's interesting always to reflect upon ulama. We should really try to learn sometimes. You know, when you've got a bit of time, try to, I don't know, read up about scholars and of the past, and it just builds that personal connection. And it's awesome because they come to life then for you. And Imam Ghazali is definitely an interesting personality because he goes through a lot in his life. A lot happens to him. So he goes from different, he comes from this angle where it's almost like a movie in reverse. Right, this is because he goes from like glory to seclusion. You know that movie 120, what is it, 127 hours, 172 hours, whatever. I remember after that movie there was somebody wrote a joke that they said, oh, if you watch 172 hours backwards, it's a beautiful movie about a disabled guy who finds an arm in a desert. I'm sorry, people, but my humor is warped. Okay, so you ought to know that my humor has no boundaries. Except on here, these are actually boundaries. My real humor you could never tolerate. So anyway, Imam Ghazali has this, it's almost in reverse. In a nice way. He was a legend. But he begins as a legend. It's like, whoa. He doesn't, most people, they work through their lives and they face all these backlashes and this and that, and they get hated on and everything. And then in the end, they're like on this, they're up there. And then usually after they've passed away, some of them, then they're totally rated. They're like, whoa, that's the... Alright, Wafa. يقال من لم يقرأ الإحياء ليس من الأحياء. Okay, right. So the thing is, but Imam Ghazali, it goes the other way because he kind of in his youth almost, and when he's still young, he's already a legend. He's a don in the Shafi'i madhab. He's one of the daddies of Usul al-Fiqh. He's a don in the Shafi'i fiqh. He's teaching. He has, as Imam Mazari and all these other people, Ibn Arabi says that he saw him and there were 500 people wearing imamas, and in that time only dons would wear imamas, like top-notch scholars. In the East, this is. So in the West, like in Muslim Spain, they never had a custom of covering their hair, the men. But in the East, they did. So they used to wear turbans. The scholars did. So Ibn Arabi says, I saw 500 people escorting him and his personal entourage, and he had it all. Imam Rashid, ahlan wa sahlan, tasharrafna bi hudurik, people. Imam Rashid from up north doing some excellent work with young Muslims. Right, so do reach out to and support his work. Right, so the thing is, now, but Imam Ghazali then goes from that to, he kind of becomes disenchanted with this whole thing. And he goes off on this soul-searching mission. And it's interesting because he even writes about how he almost loses faith along the way. And loses Iman almost. And I see that as a huge accolade for him, like a huge, like this is like a wow. Like I don't see that as a negative. I see that as the confidence in the man to admit that and to say that look, amongst my difficulties was that I even grappled and was losing the battle of Iman. And he writes this in his his books later on, and he goes to seclusion and it's just it's very interesting. And he writes the Ihya. You see, because of that, some of his later views are very kind of I don't know if strict is the right word. They can appear harsh and ascetic. Ascetic is a better word. So he's not interested in anything to do with the dunya, and he's very about just the way of asceticism. So I think he's definitely an amazing personality. It does not mean you have to agree with everything he did or his views and the way he saw things, but he is an amazing personality nonetheless. I mean, may Allah make things easy for each and all in trying to acquaint ourselves with these legends. Is it valid to perform tayammum instead of wudu if one suffers from dry skin on one's feet and rash? Yep, so if somebody has, like, let's say athlete's foot or things like this, and you so the thing is, well, somebody just said, are you here to please the government? Well, what a random statement when I'm speaking about Imam Ghazali, and I've got nothing to do with, and I've been speaking for I don't know, half an hour now about marriages and all sorts. But anyway, so there you go, problem solved, blocked. God, I swear, it's too easy, isn't it? You just block. Sometimes when I'm really in the mood, I might mock and block. But then people get offended. That's the thing. So I have to be a moderate person. I can't always mock. Sometimes when I'm in the mood, right? So if you're suffering from things like athlete's foot or other things, I believe, in my understanding, you can do tayammum. Other ulama may disagree with that. The Maliki school in general is much more relaxed on its approach to tayammum. Hence, if you go to any of these Maliki masjids, like let's say in Morocco or these different places, you will see they keep a stone in the mosque. You'll never see that. If you try and put a stone in like a masjid in Pakistan, they'll probably pick it up and smack it on your head. They'll be like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? Why is he put... Right, I have a question about nikah and divorce according to the four madhabs, and second question about tasawwuf. Okay. Do you want to ask it as well, or you just want to tell me? I'm only joking there, Solomon. I'm only joking. So let me know whatever your questions are. You've asked, is it true about drinking alcohol? Listen, some of them drink alcohol. I'm not sure. Right, okay, I think you mean the Hanafi madhab in the past had a debate on semi-fermented, half-fermented alcohol or beer of their age. They didn't consider that alcohol because it was semi-fermented. Now, they used to, in Arabic, the term for it is nabidh, and there were huge debates that lasted for like maybe 2-3 centuries on that. But okay, but yeah, that's what the debate is about. Why isn't Prophet Dawood included in the 5 greatest messengers, and can you explain what's meant by Musa spoke directly to Allah? Jones Darnell. I mean, you see, when people say these prophets, the 5 great prophets, it's not to belittle the other prophets, but it's to speak, it's just a grouping that some ulama have come up with. It could be from some perspective arbitrary, but it's to say, well, these were, wow, like they faced a huge struggle and resistance, and their message impacted in significant ways certain things. But it is to some extent arbitrary, okay, to some extent on who they were. People say, yeah, here Allah highlights these names specifically, so is he saying that their struggle was greater than others? I mean, it's not, I think, it's not that deep, fam. No, I'm only joking. I mean, it's not to belittle the other prophets. They're all amazing people and the best of creation, unquestionably. So I mean, don't take it too harshly. It's not a harsh statement. Right, so, brother, it's super late here in Singapore. Is it okay to follow the sky and determine subh prayers? If you can figure it out, then yes, you can follow. But in a lot of places, you can't figure out the horizons and stuff because we live in in cities and stuff like that. Have you heard of Sheikh Imran Hosein? If so, what's your opinion on his lectures on modern day banking? Ribs. Okay. Ribs. His ribs. I've never really thought about his ribs in that way, to be honest. Right, so Mudathir, been hiding, not so the thing is, an Islamic eschatology. I think it's not eschatology. I think what you're talking about is more to do with the apocalypse, his views on the apocalypse and stuff. Is there anything regarding character? I mean, I know it sounds religious. A lot of religious people get offended when someone makes jokes or funny. You see, that's just, I'll come back to this Imran Hosein question, but that Azahara, I'm not sure how to pronounce the name, but that is just people's personality. People need to, they need to take things a bit easy, seriously. Need to laugh more, honestly. As I say, a moment spent in laughter is never a moment wasted. That people today have this thing that, that religion is always serious. Like some people say to me, I can never take you seriously because you laugh. Well, okay. I'm sorry, you not taking me seriously is impacting me how? Let me get this right. They say, I would ask him for advice, but I can't take him seriously. So, okay. So let me rephrase that. You would ask me for free advice, which may improve your life potentially on that aspect, but now you won't because you don't take me seriously of my sense of humor, and this impacts me how? I don't think people think through some of their stuff, do they? Right, so now, I think people should have a sense of humor, but you're right, I think a lot of people don't, and it's their loss, really. It's their loss. They are losing out, nobody else. What's life without humor, honestly? Watch some stand-up comedy, man. Watch it, it's awesome. I totally love it. And need to cheer up a bit. Have a smile. Laugh instead, don't worry about it. I tell you, it's one of the best medicines. It keeps you young. Hell yeah. Right, so Imran Hosein, I have come across him. As in online, I'm aware of some of his views and stuff. I disagree substantially with certain views and certain perspectives. Once again, I haven't studied him or anything, so I can't. I could be wrong. Somebody said there's a hadith of crying a lot. It's a weak hadith. There you go. It is a weak hadith. It's fabricated according to some and very weak according to others. Anyway, right, the thing is, I'm not an expert, but from my perspective, his view on Islam is not something I would support. I would not, or his approach, attitude, his Islamic attitude, or the way he presents Islam is not something, and I would not encourage people to be influenced by that way of thinking, because it's a very doom and gloom outlook to life. It's all about, all he speaks about, from what I'm aware, is how the Dajjal and this and doom and gloom and the Ya'juj and Ma'juj and this is the West and this is this and riba is every, this whole okay, riba is a fiqhi mas'ala, which okay, you can disagree on, but it's just his attitude and approach is very, from my analysis, and I could be wrong, is very doom and gloom. Okay, so I do not like that attitude. Anybody who pushes that kind of, the problem with that is it turns people into zombies. Okay, so I once met a guy. Okay, I'm not about to confess anything, guys, relax. It's just that sounded really weird all of a sudden. I don't know why I just paused after it. It just added to the suspense. It's like, I once met a guy. It's like, well, okay, so it's really weird the following morning when I woke up. The thing is, right now, so I once met a guy that had converted to Islam. Right, so the thing is, he converted to Islam, and he was an intelligent guy who, I think, I'm not sure, he was Asian, so he must have been presumably Indian or something background. Now, he converted to Islam, and he was a dentist, and he was young, right? So like, whoa, wow, you know, you doing it, dentist, living the high life. And he was like very influenced by Imran Hosein. He was speaking volumes about him, and he'd been advised that his job does not allow him to practice his deen, and because he's in this riba system, he ought to make hijra, and he ought to go off to somewhere in Italy, somewhere where there was going to be some village, and he ought to kind of look after animals and live a life like that. And this guy was actually going to do this, as far as I was aware. And I don't know, I never saw him again. It was just a one-night thing. It was just met him once, but I never met him again after that. I don't think he was. Look at the gay pride flags coming up. So, but I don't think he was too happy with my response, because I told him that's nonsense. What do you mean you can't practice Islam? And he said, well, I can't pray. And I said, well, why can't you pray? Just pray on your lunch break. He said, yeah, well, I can't pray in jama'ah. And I said, well, okay. And he said, well, I can't pray in the masjid. I was like, whoa, chill out, bro. For God's sake. I mean, you've only just become a Muslim. At least take a while before you try to become a prophet. I mean, what the hell's wrong with you, for God's sake? I think, look, people get too... And then so obviously he didn't like my approach. So I'm not surprised he didn't really reach out to me after that. But I from that point, I'll be honest, I was always kind of very suspicious of this Imran Hosein's attitude to people. Okay? Alright, so Salam Mufti Abu Layth Al-Maliki. Ahlan wa sahlan. According to Hijri, that's Slam Punal saying that. Where does a day start? Where is the Hijri Greenwich line? I have no idea where the Hijri Greenwich line is. Presumably it's perhaps Mecca. I don't know. I don't think there is a set time. Somebody's asked me, okay, I hope that helps. Right, somebody said, have I read the whole book of Ibn Hazm's, what is it, the Tawq al-Hamama, the Psychology of Love? I have read, I think I've read the whole book, or pretty much. It's been a while, years ago I read it. Ibn Hazm, Dr. Love. Ibn Hazm, I tell ya, he... I think if Ibn Hazm was alive today, we'd really get on. I'd really get on with him, I think. So, but in that book, it's actually translated in English. I think it's called The Ring of the Dove or something like that. Now, alright, Adil Khan, no, the person wasn't asking when Hijri starts. He was asking the time. How do you set Greenwich? According to the latitude and longitude, where does it apply? Question was a bit more technical than that, but thanks, mate. Thanks, mate, for that the Hijri started when the Prophet migrated. That's like, you're making me out as really dumb and retarded now. So, like, I mean, question was a bit more technical. Come on, yar. I mean, give me a bit of credit. I mean, so, but yeah, so Ibn Hazm's book, I have read it. I think it was awesome. Right. Will I have a lot of similarities? I think so. I know I quoted him on the fatwa, which people said, the naughty fatwa. People got really offended, which I still fail to fathom why people got offended. Right, so, which gel do I use? I've answered this so many times. It's just a standard, I think it's called gummy or something actually, gummy. I buy it from my local hairdressers, which is Dino's, people. Right. Somebody, Walid, just sending out much supportive respect. Shukran, Walid, much appreciated. Right, Maliki fiqh books in English. There's a few Maliki fiqh books in English. I think Ibn Ashir has been translated. I know Ibn Abi Zayd's Risala has been translated into English. I think Sheikh Ali al-Iraqi has got a translation on the Risala. You can check out his Facebook page and buy it from him. Right, speaking of Maliki fiqh, Muhammad William Saleh, naughty question. I'll come to that in a moment. So I think some other Akhdari might have been translated into English. I know that the Ashmawi has been translated into English. Qadi Iyad's Foundations of Islam have been translated into English. These are all foundational, elementary to rudimentary, and elementary, so beginners to intermediate. So you can get these, they're available online. I've actually done an audio commentary on 2 of them at least, on Ashmawi and 6 audio lectures, and I've done a commentary on Qadi Iyad's Foundations of Islam in 20 audio lectures. That's available, it's free, you can search it on Facebook. Right, so you can, other than that, I think Hamza Yusuf has an audio translation, an audio commentary on Ibn Ashir, his Murshid al-Mu'in. So you can find that, I'm sure, online, maybe on YouTube or on different places. Other people have got some translations and stuff as well. So there's a lot out there. You can find quite a bit. And you should be studying Arabic. Get on with it, people. Get on with it. Right, there was a question, oral sex according to Maliki fiqh. Maliki fiqh, it's all permissible. Maliki fiqh, when it comes to this understanding that al-asl, that by default everything is permissible, the Malikis have been the most, what's the right word? Embracing. When it comes to bedroom matters, they've been the most embracing and most indulging, shall we say. So they've got a bit of a reputation for that. But yeah, it's definitely permitted within Maliki fiqh. So there's no, and you know, so there's no issue with stuff like that. So yeah. And is getting insurance on electric devices permissible? If you could explain the differences of opinion and reason for its permissibility, if it's permissible. Right, okay, these things, look, you have to go back to these things. Muhammad William Saleh saying, alright, Hanafis are jumping ship. Hell yeah. You know, it's like you get these books on sexual guidance, and they're written by sometimes some people from, I'm not trying to diss the other madhabs, but I'm just saying it as, you know, what the hell. It's like, as I say, it's like how Hazrat Harvey Specter says that, look, it ain't bragging if it's true. So, the thing is, they write some of these books on these sexual matters, and I've said, look, what's the point? I'll tell you the answer to everything. They're going to say it's just haram, or you shouldn't do it. Whatever the question, it's going to be no. And the Maliki one is like, the answer to everything is yeah. And at worst case, Malikis were dons on these things, I tell you. They were dons. In fact, Imam Malik's own teacher, one of Imam Malik's teachers, yeah, when he was asked about bedroom matters, once he was being asked by his own nephew. He was asking him. So his nephew says to him that, and his name is Abu Zinad. He asks him that, listen, is this okay? Is that okay? And he says, look, it's okay, it's okay. And he says, yeah, but is this okay? Is that? And he says, look, just chill. It's okay. He says, look, if, and he's asking him all these questions. And he says, yeah, but what about erotic sounds and making all of these things? Is that okay? Can you make sounds? Can you shout? Can you? And the guy says, look, just relax yourself. Chill. Right? He says, look, if you're behind closed doors, first ma shit. Do whatever you want. But it's not enough for the curious mind, is it? For the curious minded, that isn't enough. So he asks him, he says, but uncle, and this is one of Imam Malik's teachers he's asking, legend of Medina, master of hadith as well, and fiqh. So he asks him, he says, yeah, but uncle, do you do it? Look, getting personal. Not you see. So it's not just, is it permissible? It's like, but do you do it? So he says to him, Allah. He says, Yabna akhi. He says, listen, you know. Yabna akhi means the son of my brother, but it's like, listen, child, listen. The guy's not a child, but listen, young'un. Right. He says, if you were to see your uncle whilst he's in action, in the Arabic language they were very explicit. He says that if you were to see him whilst he's at it, in action, you would think he doesn't even believe in Allah. That makes you think, whoa, what the hell was he doing? Like, he doesn't even believe in Allah. Ya salam. Hashtag Dons of Medina. Right, so Allah, look at that, people. Look at that. Whilst I'm speaking to you, who sends me a message? None other than Sheikh Muhammad Rugi, one of the leading Don Maliki scholars of Morocco. Right there. Look at that, people. Look at that. He was the Sheikh of the Grand Sheikh of the Qarawiyyin, which is arguably one of the three oldest centers of Islamic learning in the world today. And he's a legend, one of the senior scholars of Morocco. So, just got a bit distracted there. He just sent me a message. All right. But anyway, coming back to the thing. So, yeah, that's these things. Look, and I think sometimes it's okay to take a very natural, humorous, light-hearted approach to these difficult to discuss topics. What is the best way to spend your Eid? Like everybody, just sleeping, I think. My question, is it true that a woman gets stoned if she did zina? I mean, was she doing that on drugs that she got stoned? Oh, you mean stoned? Like stoned. Oh. So, the thing is that rajam, right now, there is a difference of opinion on this kind of stuff. Okay. Right, okay, serious mode now, people. Serious mode. Well, here's the thing, people. I'm going to give you this for you to understand. Sometimes, you see, Islam is huge and vast. And it has many understandings that have been contributed to it. Our understanding today is a result of many things, which usually is our surroundings, our ethnicity. And it's less so to do with the objective understanding of Islam or an academic it's more so just to do with, because I was born in this culture, I've inherited a certain understanding with certain cultural norms, which I now see as Islamic. And they may be reinforced through certain social media kind of stereotypes and stuff like this. Rajam, this thing of stoning, right? First of all, this was not something that Islam introduced. Okay. this was something that there was a Jewish practice, and certain people had this custom before Islam. And there's a hadith in Sahih Muslim where this comes to light, because they asked the Prophet, can he rule over them according to their book? And in the hadith, the book states to do stoning. Now, the Quran never speaks of this, and there are hadith that speak of this, that then kind of the hadith condoning. The debate has been that does this carry on? Now, there's been people who've argued that this carries on all the way. Okay, so there's certain people today that would feel that stoning, we should still stone people to death. This is what the view of certain people. Other ulama disagreed with this. Now, some ulama, like in the Hanbali madhab, okay, in the Hanbali madhab, and Ibn Hajar states that this was the zahir or riwayah of the Hanbali madhab. The more apparent understanding within the Hanbali madhab was that all hudud, any punishments, all of them are immediately dropped with tawbah. So if a person does tawbah, they are dropped. Okay. Right, so that was that madhab. It was that whole, and that school of law still continues till today. And that was the qawl qadim, I believe, for Imam Shafi'i, but it definitely is the apparent wording of, the apparent position within the Hanbali madhab, the Zahir riwayat. Now, Ibn Hajar states that's also in line with the hadith which is in Sahih al-Bukhari, when a person comes to the Prophet and says, I have committed a sin, and the Prophet says to him, well, have you prayed? And he says yes, and he says then, and done tawbah, and he says yes, and then the Prophet says, well, that's an expiation for it, it's a forgiveness. Now Ibn Hajar says this incident in more elaboration, he brings it in Fathul Bari in his commentary, says that whilst elaborating on this, he says from other narrations, the wording is not I've just committed a sin, it's that I committed zina. So he then says that this is in line with the Zahir or Riwayat from the Hanbali madhab. Then there were some Malikis, right, like in the 7th century, 7th and 8th century of Islam, almost 700 years ago, pre-colonialism people, all of this, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, who were legends of their time, people like Abul Qasim al-Burzuli, right, who would have hailed from the Maghrib, which is modern-day Morocco. Now, he argued, he was a student of Ibn Arafah, who was really popular within the Maliki madhab, and al-Burzuli is very popular within the Maliki madhab. He argued in his time that Islam spoke of a kind of trajectory hermeneutics, that the rulings would change with time. Now, everybody accepted this as a principle, that rulings would change with time, but he said that including punishments would reflect the ethics of their age. So he said in his day and age, chopping off the hand, and this is 700 years ago, it's not today, 700 years ago. He said chopping off the hand, stoning, things like this would no longer suit, they would no longer meet the ethics of his age. So he said that these would be substituted. Islam would want us to substitute them. The Sharia would dictate that we substitute these with financial penalties. This was taken to his local king, and he argued this in front of several kings, and some of whom adopted this measure in his time. This ruling of his was argued for hundreds of years after him. It carried on many sides of there had people on both sides of the camp, people who argued against him. In fact, there became 3 camps. People who argued against him and people who argued for him, for his position, saying that the Sharia, there was a trajectory hermeneutics, that as the Sharia wants itself to reflect and mirror the ethics as they develop. So according to that understanding, so several people supported him, and it became the practice in what is the Maghrib, the modern day, obviously modern day, what would be Morocco and Mauritania and this part of the world and parts of Algeria. But in that day and age, even today it's called the Maghrib. So in the Maghrib, many people implemented his understanding. Now, some people argued for his thing, some people against him, and some people made a third camp saying, well, we would support his ruling if for example, rulership was weak and wasn't in a position. Now, I personally am totally with Abul Qasim al-Burzuli. I totally support his understanding that Islam reflects the ethics of the age. Amani wa alaykum as-salam. Alright, how are you doing? Right, the thing is now, I totally support his understanding that in our day and age, and he was pre, in case people are going to say, oh, this is colonial, somebody said, oh, you're doing this to suck up to the Western. Mate, he was 700 years ago, right? 600 years, between 600 to 700 years ago he was. He died in the 800s of the hijri. So the thing is, right, so he was way pre any colonial impact. Now, he had argued this passionately, and he was a great scholar of Islam. Now, according to that understanding, that's what I go with, that Islam would want us, it dictates that we reflect, that it reflects its day and age. So these things would not apply today. These kind of like cutting off the hand and doing things like this would not be what Islam would want us to do, in my understanding. Now, this is once again part of our heritage. This is part of the school of Medina. This is part of, now you might disagree with that, but this was there hundreds of years ago. Hundreds and hundreds of years ago, people argued for this. They said this was what Islam was saying. So, this is not some kind of, hey, this is a sellout strategy or something. And this is the problem today. We have this view of like when people present something you don't like, label them. They're zindiqs, they're sellouts, they're kuffar. Nobody's going to come and, write me a check because I've said this. Right? Right. But if you do want to send me checks, feel free to. No, but I'm just being honest. This is, look, my understanding. I feel a great disservice is being done to Islam. I feel that, Muslims today, the message of Islam has been stopped because Islam has been distorted and it's only presented as barbarism. And they don't let these other opinions come to the forefront. Why not? These were opinions. I'm not trying to attack any groups or anything. But look, if it's okay to call Ibn Taymiyyah Shaykh al-Islam and everything comes through him, well, guess what? Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah was from around the same kind of time as al-Burzuli. So why can't we have his view come through? It's okay to have Ibn Taymiyyah's view come through. Why can't we have his view? I'll tell you why. Because, okay, I might promote Imam Burzuli, but if I didn't do it, I'll tell you what, nobody would mention his name. He doesn't have, like petrol dollars and propaganda and kind of like endless, mainstream groups to kind of support him and to peddle him and push him and stamp him everywhere. And people block these names from coming through. They erase them from the books of history. They stop even mentioning their dissents. So the future generations don't even know that this dissent existed. And I feel that's, in my understanding, that's treachery to our tradition. Okay. So, right, people. Okay, guys. Whoa, it's midnight. What was the principle behind Imam Burzuli's understanding? I will try to in the future elaborate on this. Imam Burzuli's understanding was the age had changed and Islam wanted us. Like, I give you an example. Let's say Allah speaks in the Quran. He says, right, Allah says in the Quran, وَأَعِدُّ لَهُمْ مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ, that prepare for them in battle. And Allah says, like, min khayl, like from horses, prepare horses for them. Why is it today people, if they're going to war, they're not going to prepare horses? Because the world has changed. But somebody could say, yeah, but Allah's still saying horses. And you'd say, yeah, but today, you see, the meaning, the maqasid was that prepare weapons. But horses was just because that was descriptive for them. But once mankind would outdo horses, you would go with the time. So why is it that makes perfect sense for people when it's horses and swords, but it's not, makes zero sense when it comes to cutting off the hand? It makes zero sense. People are like, but Allah says it in the Quran. I know Allah says it in the Quran, but He also said that. He said that descriptively. He said it descriptively. He said it in line with trajectory hermeneutics, that mankind would continue to develop with their ethics and with the... Well, you can accept it here. Why can't you accept it here? Like, it's like, I don't get... it's like people... Some things in the Quran make perfect sense. It's like, duh. Like Allah says in the Quran, look, and He speaks, but people say, yeah, but Allah, not when He's making a general statement. Al-akhbar, la tadkhulu, la yadkhulu an-nasakh. You can't abrogate, or you can't specify or do takhsis or change general statements. Well, listen, Allah says in the Quran that زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ. Okay, that part hasn't changed. That mankind will have, it's been made so adorned to them, that, like with passion, towards women. Right, so that part hasn't changed, right? But and baneen and sons. Okay, now some people say, okay, that could mean children, but baneen means sons. والقناطير المقنطرة من الذهب والفضة والخيول المسومة, and horses, distinguished horses. I could say today people don't necessarily. Are you drawn towards a horse? Would you be like, wow, I can't wait till I get a horse? Not in this part of the world, mate. In this part of the world, people might be like, wow, I wish I had a Ferrari. People don't want a horse. Okay, maybe if you live in Arabia, but here, no. It doesn't mean you can't admire a horse. Sure, you might say, hey, that horse looks very regal and admirable, but then I'm sure a tiger looks regal and looks awesome. But it doesn't mean, you want a tiger. So why was Allah saying this as a statement? Is Allah wrong? No, He's not wrong. He was addressing a people. Yeah, but look, Abu Khadija, horses are sick to you, but they're not passionate. You see, the way, look at what Allah is drawing the parallels between. He's not saying in the Quran, hey, and mankind admire horses. He's not saying admire. Hubbu shahawat. They're passionately, obsessively driven. The way they love women. That you don't love horses the way, you won't be mad over horses. The way they love women, right? Boys, okay? Gold, money, right? And horses. People don't love horses like that. Not in the West today. Not generally speaking. Okay, maybe some Muslims, because they grow up watching a lot of horses. But normal people are not mad. Like if you went out, right? If you went out and said, like, I don't know, you did a survey, Muslim and non-Muslim. This is Nas. This is non-Muslims as well. You ask them, hey, do you still love women? People today, yes, wealth, hell yeah, horses. Be like, no. Like, it doesn't mean they think, it doesn't mean that they hate horses. It doesn't mean they don't admire horses, but they're not obsessed about horses. Yes, vehicles, aha. You see, vehicles, hell yeah. People love their wheels. They love their cars, right? So you can see today it's changed. Allah was addressing the Arabs of their time with what mankind was the transport for mankind in their age. Mankind would develop in time to come. So the rulings and the verses would change. Burzuli was saying that in his time, he felt, in his surroundings, that people had developed. They had changed. That today, this thing would no longer reflect what the Sharia wanted. The Sharia would rather that they paid financial penalties. That was in his age. Today, you might have some other custodial punishments and things like this. Okay. Right, okay guys, chill, don't argue on my thing, come on. Right, okay people, let's wrap this up. Somebody's asked about female circumcision. Female circumcision, right, generally, okay, in Islam, what they're referring to is called khafad. I do not believe there is any female circumcision in Islam. The Maliki madhab generally does not recognize it, neither does the Hanafi madhab. Unfortunately, the Shafi'i madhab does. And then how people practice it varies between what I believe it was initially talking about to outright bloody, I don't know, horrific, traumatizing kind of torture. So, two different things. I mean, so just to clarify, genital mutilation is disgusting, despicable, and I would consider it to be an affront to Islam and categorically haram. Okay, I'm just making that absolutely clear. Khafad, in my understanding, what it was talking about, I think, I could be wrong, I think it was talking about, I read the word the other day, I got to check it up, a hudectomy, which is that in some places there's a kind of, in some ethnicities and some racial, geographic kind of upbringing, some people, the way they develop, there's like a kind of foreskin equivalent, right? Which is hangs. It's a kind of like a skin which hangs around part of maybe. Once again, I'm not a gynecologist, right? But I believe it's around the clitoral kind of region, and and it protrudes. Now, this is what some of the Maliki ulama, when they were discussing this, said this was talking about. So in some people, because they had genetically, they had, and if you want to call it a deformity, or I don't know if they're comfortable calling it a deformity, but an abnormality. It was slightly abnormal from other people. Alright, Eid Mubarak, Mudathir and Sheikh Isa, right? Hope you guys are awesome, right? And didn't get too caught up in the moon wars, right? But the thing, so coming back to this, that this is what they were referring to. Some people, they do ridiculous things and just have gone out and snipped the bloody, they've just traumatized the poor child. And I believe that to be haram. I do not believe this to be Islam. The hadith they use, one, it's not a strong hadith, and secondly, it was referring to this. That's all it was referring to. Okay, people, on with that, let's call it a wrap. Inshallah, so many questions done. I'll leave you to it. If you do have any questions, feel free to, inshallah, send them to me. You can message me. Right, yeah, I've answered Bakri. As I said, it's like an abnormality, an abnormal development, like an extra certain amount of skin, which was equivalent to the female version of a foreskin around the clitoral area. And that's what some of the ulama write about in their commentaries in Maliki fiqh, that some cultures, they say that some regions, the people that live in those regions genetically have this, and this is what it was referring to. And the Malikis generally do not practice it, hence it's not practiced throughout most of the Muslim world today, which is Maliki and Hanafi. Most of the Muslim world today does not do it. Unfortunately, the Shafi'i madhab does, but I think some of them may be confused on what they actually do with that. People, I'm going to leave that topic there. If you want to reach out to me, send me a message. If you're not already following me, follow me. Like this page of mine, my official public page, people. That's where I'm going to be doing all these lessons from. Right, stay in touch. If you're on Snapchat, add me. It's Malm2014, MALM2014. Likewise on Twitter, right, at me, friend me, follow me, whatever it is, inshallah. Reach out to me. Give me your salams. right? And I'll see you all next week. Till then, people, have an awesome Eid. Have an incredible laugh. Watch some stand-up comedy. Take very good care of yourselves. Till then, inshallah, stay blessed. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.